I bought a double bed online and forgot to choose the installation included service. I sent the message to my ex-boyfriend by mistake. Without saying a word, he came over. After the installation, he asked me to test whether the bed was sturdy. How can I test it? The man scooped me onto his lap. Didn't you ask me to come here to test it with me? This was extremely embarrassing. I blushed and said, "You've misunderstood. My bed also collapsed last night. One last night. The bed collapsed in the middle of something. I picked a double bed online. It arrived the next day. The large-sized express delivery took up half of the bedroom. I looked at the phone screen and was left speechless. Dear, you didn't choose the installation included service. I bought it in too much of a hurry. It was almost dark now. And I couldn't book a decorator either." I took a screenshot of the chat with the customer service and forwarded it to the culprit from last night. "Can you come back and install the bed?" I also took a photo of the bedroom. The other side took a long time to type and replied with 7 characters. "For this kind of thing, you come to me? Why shouldn't I come to him? He was the one who broke the bed yesterday. If you install it earlier, you can come and sleep on it." 2 minutes later, the other side replied, "I'll be there in 15 minutes. Time passed quickly, and the doorbell rang 3 times. I was wearing a lace nightgown and didn't even put on my slippers before going to open the door. Thaddeus appeared at the door, looking at me appraising lie. "Are you dressed like this to welcome your ex-boyfriend?" His look was one of shock. Why was it my ex-boyfriend who showed up? It has been about a year since Thaddeus and I broke up. I sent the WeChat message to him by mistake. It was all because both men used pure black avatars. "How many things did you put on the bed? It just collapsed under the weight." Thaddeus was unpacking the express delivery and chatting casually with me. "Quite a lot of clothes, I guess." I decided not to tell Thaddeus the real reason. It was really strange to explain the collapsed bed to my ex-boyfriend. The air conditioner in the room was very cold. But installing a double bed was really labor-intensive. Thaddeus was sweating profusely. I inadvertently glanced at his back. Under the soaked shirt, his body lines were clearly visible, with broad shoulders and a slender waist. I took a sip of water and looked away. My ex-husband was indeed handsome. But I broke up with him because he was too boring. He was very busy at work. And in bed. He was also dull. His posture was always the same. Old-fashioned. He would turn off the lights and not say a word. He even didn't allow me to call him Dr. Thaddeus. It was really dull. In the end, I couldn't bear it. I brought up the breakup after that. Thaddeus sat on the bedside, his hands buttoning his shirt. After being silent for a while, he didn't even look back at me. "Are you serious?" "Yes, I am." 9 words. And just like that, we broke up. He was a man who was even dull during the breakup. It's installed. My thoughts were brought back. He was really virtuous. He had even made the bed. Thaddeus sat on the bed, propped his hands on the edge of the bed, and bounced up and down hard. Even this new double bed made a series of ambiguous noises. He slightly tilted his head, the corners of his lips slightly raised, and patted the space beside him. "Try it. Is it sturdy? Was there something wrong with this man?" I hesitated and sat beside Thaddeus. Like he did. I bounced up and down on the bed a few times, forcing myself to do it. Thaddeus seemed to be staring at me. I was so ashamed that I couldn't lift my head. What was wrong with me? Testing the bed here with my ex-boyfriend? How can I test it like this? I was about to get up and ask him to leave, but my waist was caught by his arm and wouldn't let go. I directly fell backwards and sat on someone's slightly spread legs. The warm breath crept into my ear, causing a slight tickle. "Didn't you ask me to come here to test it with me?" I really didn't misunderstand. Thaddeus had really changed. He had become seductive. Even at this moment, there was an obvious change in him beneath me. My face was completely red. "You probably misunderstood. My bed also collapsed last night. It was just that I sent the message to the wrong person." Thaddeus didn't listen carefully to my words. He just gently rubbed his nose against my neck. You said that if it was installed earlier, I could come and sleep. Do you want to get back together? I was stunned. Get back together with him? If he hadn't shown up suddenly, I really hadn't considered it. But if I said I wanted to, it was just something I thought of just now. Thaddeus scooped up my 2 legs and made me sit sideways on his lap. He slightly lowered his head, and his cool lips landed on my forehead. Then moved to my cheek, chin, and neck. I was kissed until I was dazed, and my fingertips clutched his sleeve tightly. I had to admit that Thaddeus' kissing skills had improved a lot. The phone beside me rang inappropriately. A message popped up on the screen. Sister, has the new bed been replaced? I'll go and have a look. I won't be so reckless tonight. I hugged Thaddeus with one hand, and directly replied with the other hand. Not yet. Don't come. Don't come and spoil my good time. After turning off the phone, I found that this man had stopped moving. Thaddeus frowned obviously, and his hands also loose and slightly. I still wanted to lean in and kiss him. Who is he? He pressed his 2 fingers against my forehead. How did your bed collapse? I spread my hands and told the truth. Just a younger brother. He was a bit reckless when getting on the bed. And it ended up like this. For the water in the bathroom was splashing. Thaddeus pushed me away just now and went to take a shower. He came out after a long time. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the balcony, only with a white towel wrapped around his lower body, waiting for his clothes to dry. Are you leaving? I couldn't understand his thoughts again. Didn't he want to do it with me just now? Thaddeus coldly raised his eyes. What do you think? He seemed to be angry. But who had offended him? I hesitated for a long time and then looked down at my phone. Then I'll transfer you some money. Thank you for your hard work today. Silas' voice call came in. I casually answered it. Yes. Okay. You can come tonight. Yes. Everything is ready. I hung up the call. Before I knew it, Thaddeus was standing in front of me, looking at me strangely. What kind of person are you? What kind of person am I? I just installed the bed. And I haven't even put on my clothes. And you're already asking someone else to come over? I glanced at the countdown timer on the dryer. It will take him half an hour to get here. You'll leave in at most a quarter of an hour. You won't even see each other. Thaddeus stared at me firmly. His lips pursed straight. And he snorted coldly. I understood. Did he want to have something happen with me, but felt disturbed by an outsider? Or did he think that I wasn't active enough and ruined his mood? After all, Thaddeus was very conservative in that aspect. I coughed. Then I'll make up an excuse and ask him not to come back today. What do you think? That was giving him enough face. The dryer made a ding sound. Thaddeus' face was stiff. He hurriedly put on his shirt and bent down to put on his pants. I tell you, Juniper, you've misjudged me. It was so inexplicable. I also couldn't keep my face. I don't know where this chaste and resolute man came from. Thaddeus was choked by me. His face was gloomy. He opened the door and went out, but suddenly stopped. Silas, who was about to knock on the door, was obviously stunned. Thaddeus, why are you here? Silas? Thaddeus frowned. Do you two know each other? 5 sister. I just started my internship. Right? Thaddeus is my internship supervisor. Thaddeus was a doctor. Silas was a medical student. I hadn't thought that Thaddeus was Silas' supervisor. He looked back at me, and then asked Silas, So, you live here with her? Yes. It's close to the hospital here, and the commute is convenient. Thaddeus' face looked even worse. He used to live here with me too. And I kicked him out. Silas looked at me and Thaddeus. Thaddeus, why did you come here? Thaddeus remained in an odd silence. I said on his behalf, Well, he came to install the bed. It's already installed. Thaddeus probably lost face and ran away quickly. Silas was stunned on the spot. Sister, He's the youngest associate professor in the hospital. You asked him to install the bed? He offered to do it. I was a bit annoyed. Silas lowered his head and sighed. Teacher, did you take my slippers away? The pair of men's leather shoes were neatly placed at the door. I wanted to contact Thaddeus on WeChat, but he had blocked me. Silas put down the cat food can. After a while, Mimi came out. Yesterday, Mimi brought a bug onto the bed. Silas chased it all night and ended up collapsing the bed. Silas was very embarrassed. I was calm. Deduct it from the deposit. At night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep at all. Silas screamed in the bathroom. Damn it. The water is so cold. Thaddeus must have taken a cold shower in the afternoon. I knew that Thaddeus had blocked me, so I sent him some strange WeChat messages. Dr. Thaddeus took care of himself and just left me like this? He's really not a good guy. It was full of the resentment of unfulfilled desires. The message was sent. It was sent successfully. I was stunned for a moment and immediately withdrew it. This man had unblocked me again. I don't know if he saw it. I tentatively asked guiltily, just to tell you that you left your shoes at my place. Thaddeus' messages popped up one after another. I saw it. I won't come over. Don't send me this kind of message in the middle of the night. Silas is my student. He still saw it. Was he in his sage mode now? His tone was so cold. And so what if he was his student? Silas had just finished taking a shower and brought takeout crayfish, calling me out to have a midnight snack. I sent a message to Thaddeus. I got it. Silas called me. I can't talk to you anymore. I started peeling the crayfish and couldn't reply to the message. After finishing the midnight snack, it was almost 11 o'clock. Only then did I see the message Thaddeus sent hours ago. I'm an amateur. The bed has just been installed, and may be unsafe. Thaddeus was really a good teacher. He was so concerned about Silas' well-being. I directly replied, just saw the message. I'll ask him to be careful. The other side showed typing. He really typed for a long time. I waited earnestly for his reply. Unexpectedly, Thaddeus made a video call. I was in the bathroom, washing my hands under the faucet. My face was reflected on the phone screen. My whole face was red from the spicinces, and my lips were slightly swollen. I hurriedly turned off the water. Thaddeus stared at me directly, his gaze extremely sharp, faintly emitting a cold light. He took 2 hours of your time. Are you still okay? Come out with me for a second round? I checked the time. It was almost midnight. Go out for a midnight snack with my ex-boyfriend in the middle of the night? No. I'm full. Thaddeus was sitting in a single-person sofa, tilting his head back, his fingers restlessly scratching his hair. Full? You're really something. You really treated me like a tool. His phone seemed to be placed on the coffee table. The angle of the camera was upward, not capturing Thaddeus' face. It only showed his muscular thighs, his cold white wrists, his slightly raised chin, and his sharp Adam's apple. What a strange female gaze perspective. It was as if I was kneeling in front of him. I didn't listen to his words at all, but silently took a screenshot. Sister, who are you video chatting with? Silas passed by the door and his eyes stopped on my phone screen. Nothing. I guiltily hung up. Sharing an apartment with a young boy. I still need to be very cautious to avoid him having the idea of paying the rent with his body. Silas folded his arms and leaned against the door, looking at me with great interest. I saw you take a screenshot. Sister, you should find a boyfriend instead of chatting with a sleazy man online. I shook the water off my hands. He's not a sleazy man. He is your teacher. Such an impolite kid. Silas raised his eyebrows. Is he the boyfriend of the landlady's sister? No. Just a friend. I walked past him. Silas turned his head to make way for me. What kind of friend? He spoke without restraint. Video chatting without looking at the face but only at the crotch? Can't you be a bit more refined when you talk? If it weren't for the sake of his sister. I would have immediately asked him to get out. His sister is my immediate superior. Sister, be careful. Don't let someone record a video of you. Silas looked at me meaningfully. What did he think I was chatting about? Are kids nowadays full of dirty thoughts? Suddenly, he got very close to me and blinked. If you need it, you can come to me. I'm young, clean, and free. Thanks. But no thanks. I'm not interested in my superior's younger brother at all. Even if I really had the need, there were other people I would choose. Your student saw us just now. I'm going back to my room now. Do we still continue the video call? I lay on my bed and sent a WeChat message to Dr. Thaddeus. Did you too quarrel because of me? Quarrel? You're overthinking. He didn't even recognize it was you. Oh. The conversation was abruptly cut off. No matter what message I sent, Thaddeus didn't reply to me anymore. I was sulking at my phone. After a few days, Silas also became extremely busy, getting off work at 2 in the morning every day. I subtly asked him, is Thaddeus also this busy? That old bachelor is a workaholic. He stares at me to work every day as if he has a problem with me. Silas was so tired that he started having hostile fantasies. Seeing that I was friends with Thaddeus, he asked me to plead for him on the side. I sent a WeChat message to Thaddeus. Dr. Thaddeus, it's okay for you to be busy yourself. But can't you let your student leave work early? Thaddeus was very cold. It's just work. 2 minutes later, he sent another message. I'm not making things difficult for him. I didn't want to stand up for Silas. I just found an excuse to chat with him. I know you're not that kind of person. Thaddeus. He sent back an ellipsis. Half a month later, I went to the hospital for a checkup because of my endocrine problems. The female doctor asked me about the frequency of my sexual life in the past 3 months. I helplessly held my forehead. Half a month ago, I kissed someone. Does that count? Of course not. She very tactfully suggested that I just needed to have a good sleep. I stood in the hospital elevator, lost in thought. Whom should I sleep with? The elevator door slowly opened, and a large group of doctors rushed in, squeezing me into the corner at the back. Thaddeus was wearing a white coat, standing in front of the interns, his face serious and cold, with an imposing aura. Silas was right behind him, closing his eyes and yawning. Compared with Thaddeus' elite temperament, Silas was completely out of comparison. My eyes passed through the crowd and landed on the man's handsome side face. Isn't this just like when I was sleepy and he brought me a pillow? Last time, he was interested in me. I sent him a message. Dr. Thaddeus, can we continue what we didn't do last time? Thaddeus looked down at his phone. His eyes slightly narrowed, and immediately locked the screen. He looked back, very afraid of being discovered, as if he had done something wrong. Thaddeus at work was indescribably cute. I became very playful. Dr. Thaddeus, I'm not feeling well. Should I come to the hospital for a checkup? Thaddeus glanced down, quietly took 2 steps aside, standing further away from Silas. What's wrong? I stared at him and typed with a smile on my lips. I'm not feeling well all over. I want to make an appointment with Dr. Thaddeus. Can you give me a thorough checkup? Maybe the doctor will know better than the patient where it hurts. Thaddeus scoffed awkwardly and silently stood sideways, holding his phone to his chest. Juniper, please show some respect. Even if you don't feel well, don't come to me. Let's Silas examine you. He was really too much of a bookworm. I was talking about sleeping with him, and he was talking about seeing a doctor? Why did I agree to date him in the first place? Oh, I remembered. I chased him. That made sense. But I only want Dr. Thaddeus to examine me. Thaddeus suddenly paused his fingertips, quietly glanced at Silas, and then quickly withdrew his gaze. This series of actions made it seem as if he hadn't been discovered, and instead had despised Silas. Silas suddenly looked up. Thaddeus. What's wrong? The aloof Thaddeus was startled. I didn't do anything. Silas. Thaddeus quickly turned around and replied while looking down. I'm at work. Stop sending messages. Please. Just flirting on the phone scared Thaddeus like this. Dr. Thaddeus. I'm in the elevator. I'm not afraid. Why are you? 9. Thaddeus was very tall. Pretending to turn his body sideways and look back. He saw me. I winked at him. He hurriedly turned around. Looking very guilty. Their group quickly got out of the elevator. I continued to go down to the B2 floor. As soon as the door opened, my wrist was grabbed by someone and I was pulled to a dark corner of the stairs. I was completely covered by the man's shadow. Juniper. What on earth do you want? He looked down at me. His voice cold and deep. I stood up straight and looked up at him. I want to ask you out. Is that not okay? Thaddeus looked at me coldly. No. If it's not okay, then forget it. If he doesn't want to get back together, then so be it. I walked towards the lighted area. Wait. I stopped and turned around. The man was hidden in the dimness, leaning back, his fingertips rubbing his forehead. Can't we discuss it? If people find out about this, how can I face others in the future? How can I be a role model? He held his forehead with his hand, looking both irritable and resentful. First, let that person move out. I frowned, showing confusion. Why? Thaddeus was looking at me, his voice turning colder. Don't tell me you want to be with me in the house you share with Silas? I always felt that something was wrong, but at the moment, he seemed to need me to give an attitude. I was stunned for a moment. Of course not. I'm going to book a hotel. Thaddeus stared at me silently, making me feel uncomfortable all over. Am I only worthy of staying in a hotel? I didn't understand. Thaddeus had already pressed the elevator button. He was going back to work. I hesitantly asked him, then, when I've booked the hotel, should I send you the details? He looked up at me, his eyes cold. No need. I'm not that cheap. The elevator door closed. I was silent in place for a long time. What did he mean by that? He could have discussed it with me. At worst, I could have booked a 5-star hotel. I was going to ask Thaddeus to explain more about the cheap part, but I found that I was blocked again. Crazy. Always blocking his ex-girlfriend. 10. Silas got off work normally today. It's rare. Thaddeus has finally been humane and actually let me come back to accompany my girlfriend. I was bending over on the balcony to play with the cat. You have a girlfriend? No. But on my first day of internship, I made up the story that I have a partner. Otherwise, wouldn't I become the best slave? Aren't you afraid of blocking your love opportunities? There was a TV on in the living room. Silas was lying on the sofa, closing his eyes and talking nonsense. Which is more important? Love or life? I told my colleagues that if I keep working overtime like this, she will definitely break up with me. Or secretly cheat on me. I don't know. You've even discovered such a niche, poor victim path? No one answered me. Silas had already fallen asleep. I took a blanket and covered him. Then sat in the single-person sofa and casually scrolled through my phone. Surprisingly, I scrolled through Thaddeus' WeChat moments. He posted a photo of his ABS without showing his face. His well-defined fingers forcefully lifted the hem of his clothes, revealing the alluring lines of his thin muscles. I gave it a like, but then immediately cancelled it as I felt something was wrong. Such a high-quality WeChat moments post. And I was the only one who liked it. Obviously, it was only visible to me. I really suspect that this man is crazy. I can't get him into bed. He keeps blocking and unblocking me on WeChat. And he can't stop using seductive means. I angrily commented, hypocritical, in less than 3 seconds. He deleted the WeChat moments post. It felt like there was a broken heart on the other side of the screen. I'm sorry. I felt so guilty that I wanted to die. Thaddeus, it has nothing to do with you. The WeChat moments post was sent by mistake. I deleted it as soon as I noticed. Thaddeus, I let Silas off work. Don't come to me anymore. It's really not good. He has always disliked the practice of using internal connections and asking for favors. I won't do it again. I was just casually mentioning it before. Also, your photo was very nice. Thaddeus, that's not what you just said. I sent an emoji of a little cat standing up in confusion. Thaddeus' call came in. Is Silas next to you? His voice seemed very nervous. I picked up the water glass from the coffee table and looked at Silas on the sofa. Yes. He has been asleep for a long time. I'm playing with my phone. What do you want to say? There was silence on the other end for a while. In the faint and crackling sound of electricity. Every word from Thaddeus was extremely embarrassing. You said the photo was nice. Then do you want to video chat with me? Are these words really from him? I spat out a mouthful of water. Silas was even woken up by me. He asked me what I was doing, and I quickly said it was nothing. Fortunately, Thaddeus didn't make any sound either. I sneaked back to my room. Climbing onto the bed, I said to Thaddeus, yes, let's video chat. He looked at me, then lowered his head and softly said yes. He pointed the camera of his phone at his waist and abdomen. He raised his hands upwards and took off his short-sleeve shirt. Not only was his figure great, but he also had fair skin, which made the red parts look especially red. I was so shy that I covered my mouth with the back of my hand to keep from screaming. In the past, he was reluctant to turn on the light. Now my ex-boyfriend was so open. I couldn't see Thaddeus' face, but his voice carried a slight tremor. If there's anywhere you want to see, you can make a request. I can do anything. I swallowed. One really shouldn't be too greedy. Juniper, pay attention to your self-cultivation. I hesitated to speak, and then started to speak again. Can you take off your pants? Okay. Fine. Be a good woman in the next life. The body in the camera froze for a moment. His hands moved to his waist. His fingertips gently dug in, and he hesitated to move downwards. I still have to keep my underwear on. His voice sounded aggrieved. Maybe this was his bottom line. Yes. Yes. You can keep it on. I earnestly admired Thaddeus' following performance. His waist and butt were so sexy. He was wearing dark blue underwear inside, showing good taste. Thaddeus' voice was full of shame. Juniper, can you stop staring at one place? Only then did I notice my intense and focused gaze had already made him excited all over. I coughed awkwardly. Sorry. It's okay. He lowered his voice. I'm doing this voluntarily. I noticed Thaddeus' disappointment. Otherwise, for fairness, should I show myself to you too? Thaddeus' flushed face appeared in the camera. He lowered his eyelashes and evaded in his tone. No need. I'm going to bed. In the state he was just in, how could he be going to bed? Are you going to take care of it yourself again? Thaddeus was silent for a while, then slowly raised his eyes to look at me. His gaze complex and hard to fathom. Then what else can I do? Of course. You could ask me out. Then what else can I do? What kind of rhetorical question was this? I just quietly looked at him, neither speaking nor hanging up. Thaddeus seemed to understand the hint in my eyes. He was like being forced to receive a customer. Can you come to my place now? 12. This is so outrageous. How unreasonable. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. What on earth did he mean? And he was so reluctant. I was the one who dumped him, not the other way around. Okay, here we are. The driver pulled over. Damn it. I even took a taxi here myself. I think the cheap one is someone else. In the dim night, Thaddeus was standing on the roadside waiting for me. When I saw that he was quite obedient, I ran towards him quickly to hug him. But he pushed me away awkwardly. Don't do this outside. He looked as if he had done something wrong. Can't you be less conservative? What era is it now? I was really helpless. Thaddeus held my hand and walked forward. No matter what era it is. It's not honorable. When we entered the door, he let go of my hand, pushed me against the entrance, hugged my waist tightly, and kissed me passionately. Didn't you say it was not honorable? I gasped intermittently. Thaddeus lowered his head to kiss me wantonly, his eyes looking rather indulgent. But his words were extremely cold. Can you just enjoy it and not say such things? I was furious and pinched his waist hard. What kind of words are these? Am I the only one enjoying it? Aren't you enjoying it? If you're really so reluctant, who can force you? Thaddeus let me pinch him. He stared at me for a while, his eyes dark and deep. Yes. I'm wrong. I'm born cheap. You can say whatever you want. He picked me up horizontally, walked straight through the living room, and kicked open the door of the master bedroom. I was thrown forcefully onto the middle of the bed. Then he leaned over me. The weight of two adults made the mattress sing slightly and bounce back from time to time. Thaddeus might be having sex with me out of hatred, or competing with someone, gentle yet fierce. I gradually couldn't resist him anymore. Thaddeus, are you on drugs? I even wanted to kick him off the bed. He used his arm to hold my waist and lowered his head close to my ear from behind. Are you complimenting me for being better? Baby, you're so sweet talking. In the end, after tossing around for 2.5 hours, Thaddeus glanced at the time. His expression was full of satisfaction. He lowered his head to end this affair with a kiss. Are you staying overnight at my place? Or are you going back? I was stunned for a moment and looked up at him. Thaddeus was looking down at me, his expression cautious and serious. He was definitely not joking. I felt empty and flustered in my heart. After everything was done, he didn't mention getting back together at all. Instead, he asked me if I wanted to go home. What was the situation now? Was I about to ask that question? My mind was in chaos and my heart was resistant. But I still opened my mouth. What is our relationship now? Thaddeus was also silent for a while. It depends on what you think. Fine. Fine. Bastard. You're so brave. Thaddeus still wanted to come and hug me. I immediately pushed him away coldly, picked up my scattered clothes. I'm going back now. He tried to persuade me to stay. Can't you stay overnight at my place? His tone even sounded disappointed. I turned my head and gave him a wide-eyed look. Am I your girlfriend? Should I stay overnight at your place? Thaddeus' face turned pale. He lowered his head in embarrassment. He only dared to answer me in a very low voice. No, I'm not his girlfriend. 13 I went home but couldn't fall asleep. I really couldn't figure it out. Thaddeus wasn't a bastard before, and I felt that he liked me a lot. Were all those just my illusions? I woke Silas up, who was sleeping soundly. Well, I have a friend. She reunited with her ex-boyfriend. The two of them had strong feelings for each other and finally had sex. But afterwards, the man said that they were not boyfriend and girlfriend. Why do you think that is? Silas propped his chin with his hand and tapped on the phone screen with his fingertips. Sister, you went out between 9:30 and 1200 tonight, right? I was silent for a while. First talk about my friend's matter. Don't ask about my itinerary. Silas, that man had sex with his ex-girlfriend for free. That's it. I hissed and stood up. You make a lot of sense. I'm going back to my room first. No. You just woke me up? And now you're going back to your room? I answered him with difficulty. I'm going back to tell my friend this bad news. Silas looked at me warily. Sister, you don't look well. Nonsense. Who would look good after being used for free? What did you go out for in the middle of the night? This friend you mentioned. Isn't it you? Right? I denied 3 times in a row. I'm not. I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. Silas narrowed his eyes. It is you. He started to be aggressive. You met your ex-boyfriend recently. Went out to have sex with him in the middle of the night. And didn't even get a title. Right? I just shook my head to deny it, and didn't dare to look into his eyes. It wasn't entirely true. I didn't have sex with someone in a hotel. I just took a taxi to his place. But didn't get to stay overnight. Silas was quite speechless. I told you to find a boyfriend. Not your ex-boyfriend. I sat in the wicker chair on the balcony and drank alone all night. Silas insisted on staying with me. Early the next morning, Silas called the hospital to ask for leave. The first time, Thaddeus answered and hung up immediately. The second time, it took a long time before it was connected. Silas. Are you looking for me? Is there something wrong? 14. His tone was so gentle. Silas was also stunned. Thaddeus. I want to ask for a leave. My girlfriend was sick last night. Silas' girlfriend was just his excuse for asking for leave. Thaddeus seemed to be relieved. And then was silent for a while. Is it serious? I mean, if it's serious, bring her to the hospital. Thank you for your concern. Teacher. I want to ask for a one-day leave today. Okay. I know. Take good care of her. Silas stared at his phone. His brow full of confusion. Thaddeus is usually so taciturn. What's wrong today? He's so humane? I cursed Thaddeus in my heart. A two-faced bastard. A message from the bastard also came. Are you not feeling well? Was it because of me? I also want to come back and accompany you. After a whole night. You just remembered to comfort me afterwards? And who said I'm not feeling well? I'm just feeling bad in my heart. If you want to come, just come. Who's stopping you? Thaddeus. But I don't want to be like this. My silence was deafening. I was about to go back to sleep. Silas grabbed his coat on the sofa and reluctantly changed his shoes at the door. What's wrong? Are you going out? I'm really speechless. Thaddeus said he just forgot that there was an important meeting this morning and he couldn't ask for leave. He asked me to ask for leave in the afternoon. Wasn't Thaddeus chatting with me just now? I was woken up by the doorbell in my sleep. Thaddeus really came to see me. He also brought fish slice porridge that he made himself. He was so sneaky. With black sunglasses and a black mask. It was hard to recognize him at all. I mocked him. Brother. You're already 28. It's too late to debut. Thaddeus slipped into the house. Raised his hand to look at his watch. I only have 2 hours. Silas will be back soon. Come and have your meal first. I shrugged infuriately. Are you so afraid of him seeing you? Thaddeus put the porridge in the dining room, pulled out a chair, then turned around and stared at me coldly. Fine. I'm not afraid of him seeing. I'll wait for him to come back here and kiss you in front of him. Are you happy? 15. I was full of question marks. Which of my words offended him? It was so inexplicable. Thaddeus. You're really crazy. Go register at the psychiatric department. He sighed helplessly and tapped his fingertips on the table. I'll go register later. Come and have your meal. Thaddeus was quite good at cooking. The fish slice porridge was delicious. Dr. Thaddeus. Are you so nice to people who are not your girlfriends? Thaddeus. Sitting opposite me. Slightly moved his eyebrows. I'm even nicer to my girlfriend. Fine. Are you satirizing me? I stirred the spoon quickly, gnashing my teeth. Then I hope you find a girlfriend soon instead of maintaining an improper relationship with your ex-girlfriend. I emphasized the words, improper relationship. He leaned back, closed his eyes, put his phone on the table with a da sound. Can you stop always mocking me? Juniper. I know I have my own problems. I'm prepared to be condemned by everyone. But you keep scolding me. I really feel very bad. Which version has the scumbags lines evolved to? I finished eating and stood up. Go register at the hospital. I don't understand. Thaddeus lowered his head to clean up the dining table. His face looking very fragile. He carried the garbage, walked to the door, and looked at me from time to time. Then I'm leaving. I didn't say anything. Thaddeus didn't leave either. He directly put down the things, walked over, and squatted in front of me. Since I'm here already, Can I kiss you? I looked at him speechless. Lie. What do you think? He probably had a problem with his head. He actually closed his eyes confidently and raised his head to lean in. But I slapped him gently. Thaddeus had a complex look in his eyes.